Welcome to High Ground. My name is Tanner, and today we are talking about the semifinals of the Berlin Major for Rainbow Six Siege. So yeah, the penultimate day. We only have the grand final left to play, and a couple of matches, of course, to talk about today. And tomorrow there will also be the new season reveal. I think some of the information has been coming out. The new operator, I think their loadout has mostly been unveiled, but I don't know if we know exactly how the gadget works just yet. So we'll have to see that tomorrow, and also all the other stuff that's coming in the new patch. Excited for that. But okay, so let's talk about it. XSET versus Rogue, W7M versus FaZe. So my predictions have gone down the drain. I had 3 out of 4 in the quarterfinals, and then I did not get either of these two semifinals right. And, you know, they've been like fairly difficult to call. And maybe I went with a little bit the underdog picks in W7M. But and maybe even for Rogue, looking at on the CGG page, which we're going to go to in a minute, I think Rogue had like quite a few more votes. But based on how XSET played against Wolves, I really thought XSET had a better shot. But again, we'll talk about that in a minute. So I don't think I really want to talk about anything here. Let's just go straight to the CGG pages to talk about it. Okay, so first up, yeah, XSET versus Rogue, and 2-1 in favor of Rogue, but I mean, that is not what anyone would have expected to happen after the first map. XSET destroy Rogue, and it looked like it was going to be a clean 2-0, another swift destruction of an EU team, similar to what they just did against Wolves in the quarterfinals, but not to be. So in fact, XSET got progressively worse. They won 7 rounds, and then they won 4 rounds, and then they won 1 round. So -3. And maybe it's an XSET fall off, and probably you have to say it was to some degree, but I think much more impressive on the inverse is the sort of resilience shown by Rogue to get 7-1 on the first map and then come back and win 2 decisive maps. Of course, 7-4, it's not like the most decisive thing. It's fairly decisive, but maybe a tiny bit close. 1 or 2 more rounds breaks XSET way, and of course they can take the victory. But a 7-1 after being 7-1 on the first map, yeah, I mean, Rogue have a ton of momentum, I suppose, going into the final, and I'm of course going to do a prediction for their game against FaZe, and so I guess I'll just save it for them. And yeah, about 60% of voters in favor of Rogue. I don't know if that's like a hometown thing. I don't know CGG if that really matters on here. This should be a fairly homogenous representation. I don't know where most of the voters come from on here or whatever, but okay, for some reason people thought XSET were sort of the underdogs, and it felt more even than this to me. But again, I almost felt like XSET were the advantage team, after seeing what happened in groups and then in the quarterfinals and whatnot. Okay, so looking at the stats here on XSET's side, this might be exactly upside down from how the overall ratings were for all of the players coming into the day. I think Kino ends above Yaga, but they're very close. So I think it was Diaz was their highest rated player, and then Yaga, and then Kino, and then Spirits, and then Gomez. And it's almost this exact same order, but it changed a little bit after this game. And so, I mean, I guess what ultimately happened was, I sort of talked about it before, that the really solid players from XSET needed to largely keep up their solidity, and that being Yaga, Diaz, and then also Kino at this event. And then we probably needed to see a little bit more fire from Spirits and Gomez. And when Spirits and Gomez, I mean, they didn't show up massive, but obviously these are like pretty decent stat lines. They went positive here, and then just not good enough. Of course, they had one really dominant map, one map where they got destroyed, and then a close-ish map, and so their stats aren't abysmal by any means, but again, probably needed to see just a little bit come out from probably Yaga and Diaz Lucas, one of them or both of them or whatever. But okay, that's sort of what went down there. And then yeah, Spoit back on top. He's faltered a tiny bit in this tournament, but his stats are very good overall still. And I mean, I think led his team to victory here. I guess XSET actually came out on top in terms of entry by just +1, +1, +1, +1, +1, -5. So a pretty brutal series coming out from Kanto. He's had a pretty good tournament overall. I think it's averaged out to be pretty average, I suppose. Let's see how he plays in the grand final. I hope he comes up big, but yeah, obviously Spoit and Cryan, the sort of wonder duo for this team, came up big, and Leon, especially in that final map, I want to say he was their best performer. He was 7-1 or something like that at one point, and I'm sure he got a couple more kills before it ended. And then Deepak, just his stats usually aren't that great, but I think he is at this moment thought of as one of the better enablers in the world, if not just in Europe. And okay, so those are the stats for this game, and so we'll talk about Rogue again in a minute in the context of the grand final. Let's go to the other match first up. W7M versus FaZe. Of course, this is a rematch of the Copa Elite 6 grand final where FaZe Clan did take down W7M, so there's a little bit of a precedent for FaZe Clan to beat W7M. I think they definitely have a winning record. If you just consider this modern version of W7M, a little while back. I don't think they had Keys or JV or Volps. I think is Herds and GDN are more the two legacy players on this roster, I think. But yeah, if you just consider the modern rendition, I think because, especially because of the Copa Elite 6, the most recent one that FaZe has the winning record. And okay, so we play on Oregon, we play on Cafe, and I don't know, W7M, they just didn't come out of the gates in the way that they needed to. They especially crumbled on Cafe, even though it was closer. But there were a lot of clutches from FaZe, and we'll see that reflected, I think, in a minute. So it looks like W7M actually the pretty massive favorite, and I don't know, maybe that's just because there's more buzz around W7M because they've had the really massive ascendancy, whereas FaZe Clan, I mean, obviously have solidified themselves as an excellent team. They won the Sweden Major last year, and they're back to a grand final. And I do wonder if part of the reason FaZe was able to take this fairly handily was the fact that who they got to play against in the semifinal. So W7M got to play against Elevate, whereas FaZe played against Furia, so a LATAM team. So I almost wonder if, and maybe this is just like pure conjecture, it's not terribly relevant, but it feels to me almost like that might have been a little bit of a warm-up. It got them in the right mindset. Probably a lot of people would say that Elevate maybe have a sort of a LATAM-esque play style on service level, but I think Elevate, especially in their current rendition, are a little bit more methodical than people are really giving them credit for. So maybe not really the case. And Furia, I mean, it might even call Furia like W7M light at this point in terms of play style and whatnot. So yeah, maybe that gave FaZe a little bit of an advantage. Maybe FaZe really just did have W7M's number coming into this. Maybe FaZe just their real veteran status across all of their players came up big for them here, and they had more longevity. Maybe W7M, because they've never made a run like this in a tournament by way of being such a new roster. Maybe they were getting a little bit tuckered out. Whatever the case, but the FaZe players definitely did come up big on the day. And we see Keys coming up pretty big, as he usually does. He was the lowest rated player, I think, for them in the previous series, but of course they won it out. +7 and +3, really good stats, but nobody really backing him up too much. I guess, not terrible stats by any means. GDN 8 and 16 is pretty brutal. 0.35 KPI is very low. Only 3 plants to boot. Keys actually with 2 plants and a 1VX. But yeah, notice one clutch here, one clutch here, but we have 5 for FaZe Clan. 3 of them coming out from Bullet. Massive series from him. So yeah, going +5 and a really high cost, but the clutches are what really made it for Bullet here. And I think it was back-to-back rounds. It was like a 2v2, Bullet and Souls versus 2 of the players from W7M. I don't recall if they were the same players, but and I think one of the rounds, one of the players was downed. No. I think that's a different round actually. I think I may be thinking of the round that Cyber clutched up. So I think in both rounds, Souls came in with low HP, and I think he might have planted both rounds. So 2 clutches, 2 plants in the same rounds. But anyways, I think it was a 2v2 Bullet and Souls versus other players, and then Souls went down maybe after getting a kill. I think Bullet got a 1v1 and a 1v2, and that really turned the tides of the games. And that if that didn't happen, W7M wins 7-5. But also, Cyber had a clutch where he got the defuse off with, I think, less than a quarter of a second of leeway. He was playing Oryx, and I think it was Keys outside the front bakery door, and he just manages to kill him, and he Oryx dashes over. And maybe if he had been playing a 3-speed operator, he might have got there in time anyways, but I don't think any other 2-speed operator, because he does do an Oryx dash as he's running, and I think that made just enough of a difference. And so I don't know if we've ever seen Oryx come in as clutch as we did there. But again, maybe a 3-speed could have done it. I'm not 100% sure. But okay, yeah, just the clutches on Cafe really killed it for W7M. It felt like they were maybe building up a little bit of momentum because, yeah, obviously they got outplayed pretty heavily by FaZe. They lost 7-4, and there were only like maybe 2 clutches. I'm not 100% sure if 1 or 2 of these other clutches were also on Cafe, but certainly at least 3 of them were. And yeah, on Oregon, FaZe got off to a little bit of a start. It felt like W7M were bouncing back a little bit, and while FaZe didn't feel like they were in total control the entire time, it did feel like they were at least loosely in control at any given moment. So FaZe looking very good going into the grand final, and I guess I'll just address the stats one more time. Astro kind of at the bottom here. He hasn't been spectacular lately, but he's recently been playing a little bit more support-oriented. He gets a decent number of plants these days, and I believe he's also their IGL taking over for Cameraman, and I think also Cameraman stats have improved a little bit to reflect him coming off of IGL. So really good for them in that regard. And then Souls, very solid this tournament, and Cyber as well. And Bullet, a little bit of a lackluster tournament, but yeah, coming out big in this matchup. And then I guess that does it for everything here. We'll take a quick look at the overall stats, and then we'll go back and make the final predictions. So here are the overall stats. I'll just give you a quick look and talk about whatever. I'm just going to go look at the FaZe and the Rogue overall stats coming into the grand final, maybe to inform my prediction just a little bit more. I think I already know who I'm going to predict, but maybe this will change my mind. Let's see. Okay, so here are the stats for Rogue. Not terribly impressive overall. If you average them out, it looks like they're around 1.0 with Spoit being canceled out by Deepak and Crying largely being canceled out by Leon. It's probably like a 1.01 or 1.02 average. But, I mean, still, they have been operating largely as a team. There have been standout plays, standout performances and whatever, especially by Spoit and Crying and Kanto, the players that are sort of designed to do that sort of thing. But, yeah, I mean, the stats are fairly tightly clustered here. A very impressive showing, plus 26 from Spoit in his debut international tournament. One of the most impressive players at the tournament for sure. Plus 7 on entry, 35 entry engagements overall. And, I mean, it's nice to see the costs all very similar. The KPR is obviously a big disparity, but again, two fairly dedicated support players in Leon and Deepak versus 3 pretty dedicated fraggers in the other 3 players. Okay, so those are the stats for Rogue. Let's take a quick look at FaZe. So yeah, Cyber on top, and one of the top-rated players for the tournament, and certainly the top-rated player remaining in the tournament. We just saw the Rogue stats, not quite as impressive as Cyber. Going for a ton of kills here. He maybe doesn't have the highest KPR. Probably somebody eliminated had a higher KPR. Maybe Citizen did? No, oh, well, 1.03 versus 1.02. Marginally higher, but yeah, Cyber has just been an absolute killer. I think probably if FaZe wins the grand final and he does fairly well, he'll probably be the MVP, just like he was in Sweden. And because, I mean, just look at the disparity in stats. I think if Souls goes really big, it could also be him because, I mean, look at these stats. This is their support player. Yeah, so Aruni on defense, I guess. But yeah, just like this is clutches, right? Or is this plants? No, that's plants. Okay, I was gonna say 7 clutches out of this world. And I get, is this? Wow. Okay, I thought they had more clutches. So I guess most of these clutches actually just came in their most recent match. They only have 10 clutches, and 5 of them just came against W7M. So they haven't actually been that clutch. I don't think they've actually needed to. FaZe, well, they've been tested certainly, but I think they've breezed through a lot of their competition, except for in that last day of groups where they weirdly got kind of smashed, especially by G2. But okay, yeah, I think I would say FaZe is the favorite going into the grand final, but Rogue has I think they have that X factor, and they certainly have the home field advantage, especially not only in Europe, but you know, being in Berlin with Rogue being a German org. So I guess the stats don't look that different. Of course, I think Astro kind of here at the bottom is pretty similar to what Deepak, and then Cyber maybe more impressive than Spoit. But other than that, it's pretty similar, and probably the average is a little bit higher here, but. No major differences between the two teams. So one more time, we'll go back here. So Rogue versus FaZe happening in about 19 and a half hours. Probably, you know, of course, less than that when the video actually goes up. But who do I think is going to take it? So I'm sort of inclined to say FaZe from a neutral perspective, but I just feel like this is Rogue's tournament. They made it to the semifinals in Sweden, and they did not play against FaZe. I don't actually remember. I'll probably have it on the screen who they got knocked out by. FaZe played against BDS, and then they played against Damwon, and then they played against Nip in the. Oh, so I guess yeah, okay. I won't have it on the screen. They lost to Ninjas in Pajamas in the semifinals. Rogue, that is, and very impressive run. I don't think people really expected them to make it that far there, and probably they've exceeded expectations here. Maybe people thought that they were going to make it out of groups, make it to semis, and yeah, probably some people did think they were going to make it to the final. And I'm going to go with Rogue here. So hometown favorites. Everybody in that stadium is going to be cheering for Rogue. Maybe a handful of FaZe Clan supporters, but you cannot really get much more hometown than Rogue. I guess maybe G2 a little bit with Rogue. Let's actually look at the players, because they have. Well, yeah, they have one German player, you know, whereas G2 also just had one. Where's G2? Did I miss him? Yeah, I guess G2 also only had one German player, but for some reason I think people have talked about G2 being the hometown team a little bit more than they have for Rogue. But I mean, if Cryan can win it out here, and they have a pretty good variety of European teams. Can Kanto Raketti get another title under his belt? Can Spoit win his very first international event, making him perhaps the most impressive rookie of all time, if that is the case? Just instantly doing very well in a UL, and then going on to win the major right after that. If FaZe Clan win it out, this is their second title in, I guess, in a year. That was they won. That was 9 months ago that they won in Sweden, if I'm remembering that right. That was the one, yeah. So just 9 months ago they won in Sweden, and I think at this point they are easily the most impressive LATAM team internationally. They are of course, the top performing LATAM team here. They were the top performing LATAM team at Six Invitational, and then they won Sweden before that. So three 3 events that they attended in a row. Of course, they weren't at Charlotte, so a little bit different there. But okay, you know, 3 of the last 4 events, they've been the top placing LATAM team. And let's see if they can take another title as well. I mean, they're possibly like the most. They're definitely one of the most. I mean, maybe we can have a conversation about if they're the most impressive team in the modern era. But yeah, obviously two titles in the course of a year is massive. And yeah, I'm rambling so hard right now. But okay, I'm going with Rogue, even though I feel like they're a little bit the underdogs. But I feel like they have every possibility that they can take it, and I just feel like with the crowd on their side, with it being them being the hometown team, I think that they certainly can take it, and I'm going to predict them to take it. Even if I don't know, I feel a little bit foolish saying it, but I'll be very happy if it does come true. Okay, so those are my predictions, and that is the video. It did end up being longer than I really intended, but okay, it is what it is. I'll catch you guys in the next one.